Shalom Akayam, Shalom brother, Shalom sisters. Give all praises, Barakatha, Yahweh, Bashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, Rakah, Kodash, Tawada, Amen. Shalom to the elders of GMS, Elder Gabar, to the elders, Elder Rakah, Elder Tahar, and Elder Ramla. And shalom to all the Akiyams on the highways and byways, bringing out the word in truth, sincerity, and spirit, in the name of Yahweh, Bashim, Yahushai. Shalom. Okay, today we're going to talk a little bit about the debt crisis going on in Europe that's going to affect the rest of the globe as well as in America. Yeah, we're going to talk about it. We're going to show you scriptures to do with these nations taking on all this debt, which is going to be part of the collapse of their financial system, which is going to collapse what we know as their fiat currency, the money that they use basically to spend basically in that. So today we're going to... where is he? Right, so without further ado, we're going to go straight into it. We're going to bring out some scriptures during it. It's a 10-minute video. Just wanted to hear what's...
The European debt crisis. It's the failure of the euro, the currency that ties together 18 European countries in an intimate but flawed manner. Over the past 3 years, Greece, Portugal, Ireland, Italy, and Spain have all teetered on the brink of financial collapse, threatening debt crisis. Visualize. What is the European debt crisis? It's the failure of the euro, the currency that ties together 18 European countries in an intimate but flawed manner. Over the past 3 years, Greece, Portugal, Ireland, Italy, and Spain have all teetered on the brink of financial collapse, threatening to bring down the entire continent and the rest of the world. How did it happen? Uniting Europe. For most of Europe's history, it's been at war with itself. Countries at war with each other tend to do less business together. Europe was always a continent of trade barriers, tariffs, and different currencies. Doing business across borders was difficult. You needed to pay a fee to exchange currencies. And you needed to pay a tariff fee to buy and sell to companies in other countries. That tended to stifle economic growth. Then came World War II, which devastated Europe. Because the situation was so dire, the fastest way to rebuild Europe was to begin to remove these barriers. Steel and coal tariffs came down, so that a steel mill in one country could sell to a builder in another. This gave the survivors an idea. A unified Europe, a union across the continent that would end all future wars. Countries began to band together toward this goal, bringing down trade barriers, lowering the cost of doing business. One of the last barriers to fall was the Berlin Wall. With a united Germany, Europe was ready. 12 countries signed the Maastricht Treaty and...
Now that is literally the beginning of the 10 toes. I mean, the 10 toes came before the Maastricht Treaty, but that is kind of where it all started, yeah? That represented the 10 European countries that brought together. So when you go to... Sorry, we're going to continue with this. When we go to Daniel... When you go to Daniel's dream, Daniel 12 and... Sorry, 2. I want... Daniel 2, and I think we go to 41, around there. This is therefore, Daniel chapter 2 verse 41. And whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, part of the potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength of the iron. For as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with the miry clay, and as the toes of the feet were part iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. All right. So we're going to go on. You're going to listen to what this breakdown is. So the Maastricht Treaty was around. Sorry. Maastricht Treaty was around, where is it? Yeah, am I spelling it right? Hold on, sorry people. Maastricht, AAS. Yeah, the Maastricht Treaty was 1992. The 10 Toes got together before that. It was the beginning of the first European Union. But like he was explaining, this when the European countries got together. So the 10 Toes had got together before that. They got together when the European Council, the EU Council, which was show you here around 1975. Treaty of Lisbon. It was called the Treaty of Lisbon. That's why I had the word treaty in my mind. That's when the 10 Toes actually got together. But the Maastricht Treaty was them officially now deciding that they were together as a trading bloc, basically. But the Treaty of Lisbon, let's go back. Just so you can see. 1981, it was about in the 70s. History of the European Union, that's good, I should do it. The European Economic Council was around that time there. They called it the Treaty of Paris. They called it Treaty of Paris, Treaty of Rome. That's when it was. It was the Treaty of Rome when it became the European Union. That's when they got together. Yeah, the Maastricht Treaty was later on, just so you understand that. But the Maastricht Treaty was now to do with the 10 Toes now becoming one block, trading block. Yeah, just so you understand. But this is when they got together as a European Union, as a union of countries together, which made up the 10 Toes. So this is when they first started. Yeah, this is the prophecy of Daniel. This Daniel chapter 2:34, when he says, "And whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, part of the potter's clay, part of the iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but they shall be in it of the strength of the iron. For as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with the miry clay, the toes of the and as the toes of the feet were part iron and part clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken." All right. And as you can see, so let's just continue with this.
Created the European Union. This made doing business across borders easier, but there was still one major obstacle: the different currencies. A decade later, they had won. The euro, launched on January 1st, 1999. Countries adopting the euro, called the euro area, discontinued their own currencies. They also discontinued their own monetary policies, giving control to the newly formed European Central Bank, commonly referred to as the ECB.
So that would be compared to what you have in America called the Federal Reserve. In America, they have the Federal Reserve Bank, okay? And you have the United States of America. Here, we're having the United States of Europe in a sense, because all these countries have got together to become one union, and now they have one central bank called the European Central Bank. Okay, so the European Central Bank is just like the Federal Reserve. It's a private organization, whereas now, just like the guy saying in the video, the European Central Bank now becomes responsible for what? For creating the currencies now for all of these countries that are part of the European Union, and it's taken away the power of each of those countries to print their own money, because at this point now we're using, all this is based on fiat money, which we'll show you a bit about that in a little while. All of these systems are based on fiat money, right? But listen anyway.
Area now had one unified monetary policy, but it still had many different fiscal policies. A key reason for the current debt crisis. Monetary policy versus fiscal policy.
Listen carefully.
You see, it's important to understand the difference between monetary policy and fiscal policy. Monetary policy controls the money supply, literally how much money there is in the economy, and what the interest rates are for borrowing money. Fiscal policy controls how much money a government collects in taxes and how much it spends. The government can only spend as much as it collects in taxes. Anything above that amount, it has to borrow. This is called deficit spending. Before the euro, countries like Greece not only had to pay high interest rates to borrow, but they could only borrow so much. Lenders.
So we're going to go to scripture again, just so you see how this thing is all working out. Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 6. Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increases that which is not his? How long? And to him that laddeth himself with thick clay. All right? Because remember, all of these societies, these European societies, were built on slavery, on the back of slaves. All right? And also built on what we know as fiat money, as money made out of thin air, has no value. Okay? So when it says, woe to him that increases that which is not his, how long? And to him that lathered himself with thick clay. So just like this guy said, he said, no, countries now were starting to spend money that they were no longer bringing in. Right? So these countries in the European Union were starting to spend money that they were no longer bringing in because they wasn't gathering the amount, they wasn't collecting enough taxes to fulfill the monies that the governments wanted to spend. So when it says, woe to him that lathers himself with thick clay, the word thick clay in the Hebrew means abayat. All right? Abayat. Yeah?
Strong's H, 5671.
Abatet.
Avteet.
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 Weight of pledges, heavy debts. That's what it means, a weight of pledges and heavy debts. Right? So this is what they did. Shall not all of these take up a parable against him and a taunting proverb against him? All right? Because this is what's happening now. And say, woe to him, right? Destruction to him that increases that which is not his. All right? How long? And to him that lathers himself with thick clay. So from the United States of America to the European Union, they're all lathering themselves with thick clay, which is hence a load of debt, pledging of goods and a load of debt. All right. So let's go back to. Sorry.
How much money a government collects in taxes and how much it spends. The government can only spend as much as it collects in taxes. Anything above that amount, it has to borrow. This is called deficit spending. Before the euro, countries like Greece not only had to pay high interest rates to borrow, but they could only borrow so much. Lenders weren't comfortable lending them too much money. But now that they were part of the euro area's new united monetary policy, the amount they could borrow skyrocketed. Smaller countries suddenly had access to credit like never before. Greece and other countries, which previously could only borrow at rates around 18%, could now borrow for the same low rate as Germany.
Excuse me.
How? Germany's credit card. You see, joining the euro area is a lot like sharing a credit card. Germany's credit card. Lenders now believe that if Greece was unable to repay its loans, Germany and the other big economies of Europe would step in and repay them because they were now bound by a common currency. With a new abundance of cheap credit, Greece and other European countries were able to adjust their fiscal policies and increase spending to previously impossible levels. Some countries embarked on huge deficit spending programs, primarily for politicians to get elected. They made promises such as more jobs and generous pensions, all of it paid for with the new money they could now borrow. The governments of Greece, Portugal, and Italy accumulated huge debts. However, they were able to repay these debts with more borrowed money. As long as the borrowing continued, so did the spending and the unbalanced fiscal policies. In Ireland and Spain, cheap credit fueled enormous housing bubbles, just as it did in the United States. Credit flowed, debt accumulated, and the economies of Europe became tightly intertwined. companies began opening factories and offices across Europe. German banks lending to French companies, French banks lending to Spanish companies, and so on and so forth. This made doing business incredibly efficient, while at the same time tying together the collective fate of the euro area. Things continued this way as long as credit was available, and credit was available until 2008. Spurred by a collapse in the U.S. housing market, a credit crisis swept the globe, bringing borrowing to a halt everywhere. Suddenly, the Greek economy couldn't function. It couldn't borrow money to pay for all the new jobs and benefits it created. It couldn't borrow the new money it needed to pay its old debts. This was a problem for Greece, but because of the unified monetary policy, it was also a problem for all of Europe. Much of Europe had been on a spending spree and borrowed more money than it could ever repay. But the problem is somebody has to pick up the tab, or...
So you hear that? So these smaller countries borrowed more money than they can ever repay because they joined a part of a union called the European Union, which in a sense became their what's the right word to use? That assured that they would pay their debt back because the banks would lend it to them, would load them up with loads of debt, believing that the bigger countries that backed them, the stronger countries that backed them, would have to pay off that debt if those countries folded and went into bankruptcy or went into administration. All right, so this is why the scripture says here in Daniel's, must truly understand. Right, this is all prophecy. It says, and as the toes of the feet were part iron and part clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong, which are the smaller countries, like he said, Greece, Portugal, Ireland, and shall be partly strong and partly broken. The strong ones would be Germany, the United Kingdom, France, the big economies. Yeah, even Italy, you could say. Right, and then the smaller ones, the partly broken ones, are the Greece, Cyprus, the Ireland, all of the countries that loaded themselves up with all of this debt. Just like it says, just like we said here in Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 6, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taught him proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increases that which is not his. Right? So they're increasing that which is not theirs. They're increasing their debt, which they know they can never pay back. Right? And to him that ladeth himself with what? Thick clay, hence a load of debt, which one has contracted. All right? Just so you understand this. This is why in Daniel chapter 2, when he prophesies about this, about the 10 toes, that refers to the Treaty of Rome, the European Union. When these nations got together under one block, Belgium, France, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, West Germany, right, all became part of what they know as because the first thing was the ECC, and then they had the Treaty of Rome. And like I said, the Treaty of Rome was all of these nations getting together. This was what the scriptures were speaking about. This is the 10 toes. The 10 toes represents the European Union. All right? That's exactly what Daniel was talking about. And then he says here in Daniel chapter 2, he says, and whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. So all of these nations that have mixed themselves together under this big flag called the European Union, today they can't stand each other. Hence why we have Brexit. And many other countries are looking to get out of the European Union, like the French Republic, the Hungarians, the Italians, the Spanish, the Irish, the Dutch, the Greeks. Remember, the Greeks had a referendum to come out of the European Union, and it was overturned by the European Council, by the European Commissioner. All right? So that is when it says there, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay, because that's what's happening. They are not cleaving one to the other. After being together for such a long time, the whole project of this European Union, according to prophecy, is falling apart. And this is how the whole monetary system is going to collapse. Because just like how America, it's laden in itself with thick debt. Remember, in America, the American government, just the federal government, is $22 trillion in debt. But they say the real figure is, they reckon it's 200 trillion. They say they're only telling you it's 22 trillion. But they said when you add everything together, what they owe to pensions and social security services, and all the different pension funds that they have, the American government have, all the different bonds that they've got tied up with the government, where countries are buying US government bonds, right, so that they can get money and borrow money from those countries. They reckon that America federal government debt is actually 200 trillion, all right? But what we're speaking of here, the 10 toes, represents the European Union. So just listen to what this, right, we're going to continue.
Every country in the euro area will suffer. Since the countries that ran up the bill couldn't repay, everyone looked to Germany.
Hear that? Go back again, sorry.
And borrowed more money than it could ever repay. But this was a problem for Greece, but because of the unified monetary policy, it was also a problem for all of Europe. Much of Europe had been on a spending spree and borrowed more money than it could ever repay. But the problem is, somebody has to pick up the tab, or else every country in the euro area will suffer. Since the countries that ran up the bill couldn't repay, everyone looked to Germany. Austerity measures. As the biggest and strongest economy in Europe, Germany reluctantly agreed to help bail out the debtor countries. In other words, Germany agreed to repay the bill, but only if the debtor countries agreed to implement strict austerity measures to ensure that it would never happen again. Austerity measures meant sucking it up, cutting spending, borrowing less, and paying back more debt. This sounds like a simple solution, right? It's not. First of all, nobody wants austerity. Austerity means cutting government spending. And since the government is by far the biggest spender in any economy, when the government cuts spending, it cuts the earnings of many of its citizens. People lose jobs. They get angry. They riot in the streets. And austerity also doesn't automatically balance a country's budget.
All right, so what's happening now with the austerity measures, right? I'm going to stop there again. We've got here, one of the biggest things going on in Europe now is the yellow vest, right? The yellow vest protest. One of the biggest thing going on right now is the yellow vest protests, right? This here. It says here, welcome to America Collect States. Oh, yeah, it's privacy complaint. Yeah, come on, man. Why you keep giving me these things? I ain't got no time for that, you know. All right, French yellow vest protests ahead of presidential measures. All right, got it. Thanks. Yeah. Several tens of thousands of yellow vest protesters took to the streets Saturday for the 22nd week. The 22nd week. So we're talking 5.5 months. All right, they've been protesting. All right, every weekend, rejecting measures to be unveiled by President Emmanuel Macron next week out of hand. All right. It says Macron is to present measures based on the analysis of nationwide debates held to find a way to ending a social crisis that has lasted nearly 5 months. Just like I said, Interior Ministry figures put the number of demonstrators at 31,000, which would represent an increase on last week's, right? It says in Paris the numbers were 5,000, on Saturday was 3,500. You know these numbers are always downplayed, let me tell you this now, because when you see these people on telly, to me it looks like probably 500,000 people out there, all right? In all of the different cities, from Paris to Marseille to Nice, right? To all the different major cities in Boulogne, in France. It says, though protest organizers say all the official figures are seriously, what did I just say? Underestimated. I'm telling you, they're underestimated. When you see the amount of people on TV protesting, it is no way 3,500 or 5,000 in Paris. It to me looked like there was over 200,000 people in Paris protesting yesterday when I saw on the news. They're telling me it's 5,000 people. Though protest organizers say all the official figures are seriously underestimated. Of course they are. Great national debate, great blabber, and Macron, we expect nothing from your announcements. Read banners carried by protesters in Paris, where police, backed up by a new law, made 15 arrests and 5,885 identity checks, according to local prefectures. Demonstrations were barred from the Champs-Élysées Avenue, right? Champs-Élysées Avenue, which is like there are in America, you would call that Fifth Avenue, all right, where they've got all your biggest expensive shops. In Britain, it would be Bond Street, where the most expensive shops are, right? It says the site of widespread violence during previous protests. It says Toulouse, which is another one of the cities, southern France, was the movement's capital on Saturday, in a city where tension appeared to have risen, the highest, with police firing tear gas and stun grenades and protesters setting fire to construction equipment and a van. All right, just like you can see there. Right, smaller protests took place in Bordeaux, Montpellier, southern France. Right, they were the first since Macron signed into law legislation that gave security forces greater powers at demonstrations, but which opponents claim violated civil liberties. This is what's going on in France right now. These are yesterday's pictures, okay? Let's go back to this video here, sorry. Let's go back, sorry. Let's draw it back a bit. All right, play.
In any economy, when the government cuts spending, it cuts the earnings of many of its citizens. People lose jobs. They get angry. They riot in the streets. And austerity also doesn't automatically balance a country's budget. You see, the government collects taxes based on people's earnings. So when earnings are reduced, the government collects less in taxes.
Simple.
They still can't pay down their debts. The pain is so bad that it's almost politically impossible to accomplish. On top of that, there are huge cultural differences within the euro area. Extreme cultural differences.
Extreme cultural differences. All right, let's go back to scripture. Daniel chapter 2 verse 43. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clays, these are the different countries within the European Union, right? Mixed together, ones with GDPs that are like 100 billion and other countries with GDPs that are like 2 trillion euros a year, all right? So those are the difference, right, between them. They shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, all right? So they're going to mingle themselves with the seed of men, with other nations, people with other different cultures, different backgrounds, different upbringings, different ideas of what money is used for, what different ideas, different religions, different beliefs, right? But they shall not cleave, you hear that? One to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay, which means they're not going to be able to integrate with one with another, right? Even though they've been part of this European Union for the last 40, 50 years, these countries, they're not able, I mean, most of these countries joined recently over the last 10, 15 years, right? The original members were there probably, didn't change probably until about 1990, like the original 10 members of the European Union, right? Before they started added on a lot of these other Eastern European countries that took part, that are part of the European Union today. So it says, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. Let me read that again for you. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, people, mixing with one another. But they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. So let's go back to here. Sorry.
Cultural differences within the euro area. Extreme cultural differences. Germany is very financially responsible. Ever since the terrible hyperinflation the country experienced after World War I, It's been extremely inflation averse and incredibly careful about spending and borrowing. In general, Germans work hard, expect little in the line of state benefits, and meticulously pay all of their taxes. Many Greeks, on the other hand, enjoy generous state benefits and don't pay taxes.
Handouts, boy.
Greece has a terrible problem.
There you
It
go.
has never collected the majority of the taxes it imposes on its citizens. And it's always been this way. Joining the euro just amplified it. The German view is that doesn't work. If you want our money, you need our morals. As the debtor countries headed towards default, the whole continent of Europe was in danger. Even though the economies of the debtor countries are relatively small, they posed a huge threat because the European financial system is so interconnected.
So this is showing you the GDP of the different countries. Germany has the highest GDP. All right. I think that's about 3 trillion euros, right? Then it's France, about 2.7. Then it's Britain, about 2.5. All right. Then you've got Italy. Then you've got Spain. All right. Then you've got, I think that's Finland, one of those countries. But I'm just saying, look at the rest of these countries down here. Their GDP is literally all of the same. All right. All under, probably about, all under just over 100 billion. Right. 150 billion. All right. Look at that. All sharing currency with countries that GDPs are in the trillion, meaning the gross domestic product, what the country turns over in income per year, Germany, over 3 trillion, right, euros per year, all right, in income. France, I think that's 3. All right, France, just over 3 trillion. Germany over 4 trillion. France just over 3 trillion. Britain over 3 trillion. Euros per year. That's what their turnover is. So if you imagine that's what your yearly wages is. You're sharing a house, right? Just to simplify this to you. You're sharing a house with someone who your income, say you're earning $3,000 or 3,000 euros or 3,000 pounds a month, and the person you're sharing the house with is only earning £150 a month, but yet the rent for the house is, say, $1,500 or £1,500 or 1,500 euros a month. So you're able to stump up your half of the rent for the house. But how the hell is that person who's sharing that house with you, right? Even if he was renting a room, right, is gonna stump up half of the rent when he's only earning 150 to $200 or euros a month? How is he going to be able to share? He can't even pay for a room. If you divided the rooms, if you had 4 rooms in the house and you said, right, each person's got to pay 350 euros for the room for the month, he can't even afford that. So this is what they've done. Partly strong, partly weak. This is the European Union. This is what you must understand. This is why, just like Daniel said, it's going to break. It's not going to be able to sustain itself. Let's listen anyway.
Because of the euro. Remember, the debtor countries borrowed money from banks, investors, and other governments throughout Europe. As the debtor countries get closer to default, everyone who lent them money becomes weaker, and everyone who lent those lenders money also becomes weaker. And so on and so forth. A problem in one country could reverberate across the whole continent, triggering a chain reaction of default. If Greece defaults, then Spain could default. Italy, Portugal, Ireland could be next. Then France, then Germany. Pretty soon, it could spread not just across Europe, but across the world.
And that's what's going to happen.
Fiscal union or breakup. The problem is, even if the debtor nations adopt austerity measures, and even if the bailout from Germany and the stronger countries helps them pay down their debts and avoid the immediate crisis, there's no system in place to prevent this from happening again. This brings us back to that fundamental division of monetary policy and fiscal policy. Ultimately, the euro area requires a fiscal union to match its monetary union, or neither. That is, there must be a political organization with authority to set fiscal policy within every euro area country. It must have the power to cut spending, raise taxes, and set laws. A fiscal union like this could actually prevent excessive borrowing and spending. However, this is an enormously complicated and unpopular notion. It means surrendering sovereignty to a higher power.
There you go. New World Order.
In essence, a United States of Europe.
There you go, people.
Yet, without a centralized fiscal union, countries will continue to run deficits, accumulate debt, degrade the value of the euro, and threaten the stability of Europe. Can Europe take the necessary steps and create a fiscal union alongside the monetary union? Or will the monetary union break up and the euro disappear?
That's exactly what's going to happen. That's exactly what's going to happen. The monetary system is going to break up and the euro is going to disappear. Why? Because this has to happen in order for them to bring in the digital currency, the mark of the beast, right? Which is your RFID chip. This has to happen because they have done what all the countries have done, is printing money out of thin air. And then through printing all that money, they've laden themselves with all of this debt. And just like it says in Daniel here, when it says partly strong and partly weak, some of these countries or colonies are strong, right? So the kingdom shall be partly strong. Some of the European Union is strong and some of it is partly broken. So all of those that have got heavy debts are the partly broken parts of the European Union. So it cannot withstand what's going on by using the euro as the currency to manage all of these countries' different financial systems without being able to control the monetary system of those countries. Listen to what he says again. I want you to understand what he's saying to you. It cannot happen. All right? Listen again.
Ireland could be next, then France, then Germany. Pretty soon, it could spread not just across Europe, but across the world.
Which it will do.
Fiscal union or breakup.
Right.
The problem is, even if the debtor nations adopt austerity measures, and even if the bailout from Germany and the stronger countries helps them pay down their debts and avoid the immediate crisis, there's no system in place to prevent this from happening again. This brings us back to that fundamental division of monetary policy and fiscal policy. Ultimately, the euro area requires a fiscal union to match its monetary union, or neither. That is, there must be a political organization with authority to set fiscal policy within every euro area country.
And that's what's going to happen.
It must have the power to cut spending, raise taxes, and set laws. A fiscal union like this could actually prevent excessive borrowing and spending. However, this is an enormously complicated and unpopular notion. It means surrendering sovereignty to a higher power. In essence, a United States of Europe.
And that's what's going to happen. Because for them to bring in the mark of the beast, the RFID chip, the new digital currency, the euro is going to collapse. And what they're going to sell to the European countries, the only way for the European Union to survive is if we bring in this new digital currency, which is going to be the RFID chip, which is going to be the mark of the beast. And everyone's going to be using this new digital currency. And then they're going to manage the physical policies for this new digital currency in terms of what he says, taxes you pay, how much you can spend, how much of that new digital money you can have from the new European Central Bank that's going to provide this digital currency. It's all falling apart. And for them to keep it alive, they're going to have to bring in the RFID chip. That's what they're going to sell to these countries once the European Union, once the euro is destroyed. Just like how the US dollar. The same thing that applies to the European Union is going to apply to America.
Yet, without a centralized fiscal union, countries will continue to run deficits, accumulate debt,
There you go. See?
degrade the value of the euro, and threaten the stability of Europe.
Which is what we're going to reach
Can
to.
Europe take the necessary steps and create a fiscal union alongside the monetary union? Or will the monetary union break up and the euro disappear?
This is exactly what's going to happen, people. This is exactly what's going to happen. This is how they're going to sell it to them. The euro is going to disappear. Look, it says, look, forget Brexit. The EU may be on the brink of collapse. It's on the brink of collapse. It's on the brink of collapse. It says the stark truth is that since the financial crisis of 2008, the Eurozone leaders have tried and failed to put the single currency on a secure footing. President Macron's attempts to promote a fiscal union is a recognition of his failure and an attempt to do something about it. But his plan has already been killed off by the combination of the German economic policy making elite and the Italian voter. If it goes ahead at all now, it will be in largely insignificant form. It says the attempt to build a banking union is meeting a similar fate. Its bail-in provisions for failing banks are not being consistently implemented, and its funds are for recapitalizing failing banks is far too small. In Italy, in particular, the political will does not exist to comply with strictures. No progress has been made on the European Deposit Insurance Scheme either, and work to build a capital market union is painfully slow and is in any case the work of decades. All right? It says the common thread across all these stalled attempts at Eurozone reform is a reluctance on the part of national authorities to pursue genuinely European solutions, because all these countries are becoming nationalists. They're tired of the European Union. This is why I said that they're going to collapse the euro just like the dollar for them to bring in this new digital currency. It says what this means in practice is that if and when a new crisis comes, and it's coming, you better believe it, it's right on your doorstep, there will be no common European response. Individual Eurozone countries will be largely left to fend for themselves, while EU leaders, as in the last crisis, seek to make decisions largely on the hoof. The question now is for how long Eurozone leaders can get away with it, and the answer is not perhaps for much longer. A scan of the horizon suggests it is all too possible to identify the triggers for what could quickly become a Eurozone and wider EU collapse. On the economic side, one obvious path to crisis is via the onset of a new recession. Eurozone growth is already slowing and the international environment is clouding badly. Right? So, I'm going to pull out some scriptures here again for you. Let's quickly go. Like I said, they're all adding themselves with debt. All of them. But like I said, boy, there's no escaping these devils, boy. Your punishment is coming. There's no escaping what they're trying to do. Quickly go to Job chapter 10 to 15. Job 20 verse 15. He has swallowed down the riches which these these Edomites have, and he shall vomit them up again, which he will do. The Most High shall cast them out of his belly. All right, because they've gathered their riches, these people, these bankers, these elites, these super elites, because only the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And like I said, the people are going to rebel, but they are going to collapse. They are going to collapse the current monetary systems for them to bring in a new monetary and physical system, right? He shall suck the poisonous ass, the viper's tongue shall slay him. He shall not see the rivers, the floods, the brooks of the honey and butter. That which he labored for, shall he restore. So all of that wealth that they gathered, when the judgment comes, they're going to restore it. But it's going to be restored in gold and silver, not in this fiat currency that they use. They call it FRNs, Federal Reserve Notes. It says, that which he labored for, shall he restore, and shall not swallow it down. According to his substance shall the restitution be, and he shall not rejoice therein. Because like I said, they're going to restore back to the children of Israel all what they stole from them, all the free labor that they've had taken from us to build their kingdoms. Because it's all coming to an end. The average person just cannot see it, because All they're focusing on is celebrity TV. I'm a celebrity, get me out of there. All they're focused on is what's going on outside in this materialistic world with the music industry and all of these different things that they're focused on with society. The sports world, the Hollywood world, the glamour, all of that they've been blinded with. It says, because he has oppressed and has forsaken the poor. That's exactly what he's done. Esau has oppressed and forsaken the poor. And he's even forsaken the poor of his own people, of his own Edomite people. This is why they're out there, the yellow vests are out there protesting, because he's forsaken the poor of his own people, Esau. Because he has oppressed and has forsaken the poor, because he has violently taken away a house which he builded not. Surely he shall not feel quietness in his belly. He shall not save of that which he desired. This is why you see what is going on right now. Because his own people are raising up against him, violently raising up against Esau, is raising up against Esau. And the other nations that live amongst Esau in these Edomite countries that control the world economy, that control the IMF, the World Bank, the WTO, the World Trade Organization, right? Everything globally. All the central banks. His own people are rising up against him, as well as other people, nations that live amongst them. Because he has oppressed and has forsaken the poor, because he has violently taken away a house which he builded not. Because like I said, what they use to build these things is what we call FRNs, Federal Reserve Notes, fiat money. Comes from the Latin word, let it be so. Surely he shall not feel quietness in his belly. He shall not save of that which he desired. No. Because I said his own people are rebelling against him. His own people are rebelling against him. Are rebelling against the elites and the super elites of these Edomites. Right? And all of those that are joined onto them. All of the other elites from other nations that have joined onto them. Their own people are rebelling against them. It's going on everywhere. There shall none of his meat be left. Therefore shall no man look for his goods. In the fullness of his sufficiency. So when he thinks he's at the top of his game, this is what I said, this is when he's going to introduce the mark of the beast, RFID chip, right? When he's in the fullness of his sufficiency, this is going to be at this point here. Where are we? The fullness of his sufficiency. This is where it's going to be. It's going to be at this point here. Revelations 13 and 16, I believe. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark, which is the RFID chip. As you know, the word there, mark, in the Greek means charagma, which means something, an incision, to insert, a stake, a pale. That's what it means, right? Being put into you. To receive a mark in their right hand, which is the RFID chip, or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Because that's what's going to replace this monetary system that we just showed you in the earlier video, right? So they can take control of the physical systems of all of the physical policies of all of these countries can be controlled by one global government. Because your physical policies, what determines what, like we said, like the man said in the video, how much taxes you pay, how much pension you get, how long you work for, what hourly salary you get, what your goods are worth. They want to control everything, right? So once they replace the monetary system, which is what we know today as fiat money, right? It says, and no man might buy or sell, say he that has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that has understanding. I tell you, if you don't have no understanding what these devils are planning, right? It's going to happen. It has to happen before our Lord and Savior Yahweh comes. Here is wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast. For it is a number of a man, and his number is 666. 666, 666, which means stigmata, stigma, right? And we already showed you when we're going to the word stigma, right? 666, chi stigma. And we go to the root meaning of the word stigma. A mark pricked in or branded upon the body. To the ancient Oriental usage, slaves and soldiers bore the name of or the stamp of their master. And that's what they're going to become, your master, once they bring in this RFID chip, or commander, branded, or, see that? Pricked, cut into their bodies, right? Into their bodies to indicate what master or general they belong to indicate probably what country and what government you belong to, right? Or what regional government you belong to that's going to be controlled by the global government. And there were even some devotees who stamped themselves in a way with token to their gods, right? So it's a mark, branded or pricked, cut into you, stigma. It's the chip, size of a rice grain. So we go back to Job. Job says here, there shall none of his meat be left. Therefore shall no man look for his goods. In the fullness of his sufficiency. That's when the RFID chip's going to be global. That's going to be the fullness of his sufficiency. He shall be in straits. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. This is when everything's going to explode. Once he's at the pinnacle, the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits. All right? We look up the word straits. He shall be in straits. Yatsa.
Strong's H 3334. Yatser. Yatser.
To bind, to be distressed, to be in distress, be cramped, be narrow, be scant, to suffer distress, to besiege. He shall be in straits. Right? Be distressed, be straitened. Figuratively, to be in distress. Because that's what's going to happen. The people are going to, that's when nation is going to turn against nation. All right? In the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits, he shall be in distress. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. Because this governance, this new order, this new money system is going to derive from the United States of America. They are the one that are going to lead the way because they are the one, once they fold, once the American dollar collapses, every other currency is going to collapse alongside with it. And I believe it's going to be the US dollar to collapse before the euro collapses. But as the US dollar collapses, then the euro will collapse. So the two main money providers, money reserves around the world. And then you're going to see the yuan collapse, the Chinese currency collapse. And then all the other smaller currencies beyond that will collapse. The pound, the ruble, all the different currencies around the world. And then they're going to have to get together and bring in a new system. It says, when he is about to fill his belly, the Most High shall cast the fury of the wrath upon him and shall rain it upon him while he is eating, while he's celebrating. While he's celebrating. Right? It says, he shall flee from the iron weapon. Those are the missiles. The missiles, like I said, the nations are going to go to war once they're in this, once America. Because the only people that are going to benefit from this new money system is going to be America. They're the ones that's going to really benefit from it in Europe. The two main currencies, the euro and the US dollar. So once it says here, when he is about to fill his belly, once he thinks everything's in order now, everyone's using this new digital currency based on the RFID chip. It says the Most High shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him and shall rain it upon him while he is eating. He shall flee from the iron weapon, which are your ICBMs, because at that point there, they're going to go to war. And the bow of steel shall strike him through. That's the ICBM, Intercontinental Ballistic Missile. Because the countries that are not going to benefit from them are the same countries that they are warring against today. Russia, Iran, North Korea, China, the ones that they got their trade wars against, the ones that they got all their sanctions against, the ones that they're calling the villains, the totalitarian leaders, the ones that they call all the despicable words that the West like to call these other leaders. They're the ones that are not going to benefit from this. It's going to be the same. Business as usual. The status quo are going to benefit from the new money system, which is going to be the RFID chip. The other smaller countries and the other big countries which trade with America, like China, are not going to benefit from this like how America is and Europe is. So this is why it says, when he's about to fill his belly, once he thinks he's got everything in order, the Most High shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him. He's gonna put the spirit on Russia and China to say, man, you guys are not, you're not eating, but they are. Your people are starving from this, but they're not. He shall rain it upon him while he is eating, while they're sitting down and they're eating. Well, oh Lord, I tell you, people don't realize how this thing is gonna play out, you know. He shall flee from the iron weapon, which is your ICB him. The bow of steel shall strike him through. It is drawn and cometh out of the body. Yea, the glittering sword cometh out of his goal. Terrors are upon him. That glittering sword is the nuclear war. They're going to go to war. And remember, the war is going to start in the Middle East, in the valley of Jehoshaphat, Yahweh's judgment, the valley of judgment. And from there, it's going to escalate. It says, all darkness shall be hid in his secret places. A fire not blown shall consume him. What's a fire not blown? A fire not blown is a fire that comes from a nuclear missile, which means you haven't got to start it up by any means of, lighting a match or rubbing two pieces of wood together and anything like that. Conventional missiles destroy, break up. They break up buildings, destroy buildings, break up houses, break up towers. They do not blow a fire. Fire does not come from them. A nuclear missile creates a fireball. That's why it says a fire not blown, right? Not started by conventional means, shall consume him. And only a nuclear fire from a nuclear weapon can consume you. It shall go ill with him that is left in his tabernacle. They're going to be sitting comfortably in their house in Europe, in America, and then the war's going to kick off. It's going to start off as a conventional war in the Middle East, and then it's going to escalate to a nuclear war. It says, the heaven shall reveal his iniquity, and the earth shall rise up against him. The increase of his house shall depart, and his goods shall flow away in the day of his wrath. How is his goods going to flow away? Because most of what they own is going to be destroyed. Most of what they're defending, what they're lifting up on high is going to be destroyed. And it's going to be destroyed by a nuclear war that starts off as a conventional war in the Middle East. This is the portion of a wicked man, which are your elites, your super elite, your bankers, your corporate managers, your hedge fund managers, your investment bank managers, all of these that are stealing the earth's wealth and resources and giving people and printing all of this fake Federal Reserve notes, giving out these currencies made out of nothing. So this is the portion of the wicked man from the Most High, and the heritage appointed unto him by the Most High. There's no escaping this. These elites, these super elites, these bankers, these Hollywood execs, these billionaires, these multimillionaires, all of these super rich and rich, all of what they own is going to be worth nothing. That's why it says the increase of his house shall depart. All of his riches shall depart, and his goods shall flow away in the day of his wrath. Whose wrath? Yahweh Bashim Hawashai's wrath. Because he's the one that's going to put the spirit on Russia, with the Iranians, with the Chinese, to take up arms against Europe and NATO, because they're going to be responsible for destroying the monetary system to bring in the new system, digital currency, which is the RFID chip. And the only people who are going to benefit it are the same people that benefit from the system that they use today. those that they consider part of the Western world, the European Union and America, Australia, all of those countries. So this is the portion of the wicked man from the Most High, and the heritage appointed unto him by the Most High. There's no escaping this. Look, this is fiat money, so you understand.
Since 1971, when President Nixon took the United States off what was left
Listen
of the gold
carefully.
standard, the world has operated under a system of money called fiat. The dollar, the pound, the euro are all government fiat currencies. Fiat is a Latin word meaning let it be so. It is the law that this government currency be money. Indeed, without that legal enforcement, and the fact that we must pay taxes in this money, that dollar bill or that computer digit that represents a dollar would be pretty much meaningless. Only the government has the power to issue fiat money, but banks can create it through lending. If somebody wants to borrow $10, a bank can create it from nowhere and lend it. It can then charge interest. Banks also create money by lending against an asset, such as a house. They're given the deeds to the house, and they create the money out of nowhere and lend it, at interest, of course. Over the last 40 years, since this fiat system of money became the global norm, the supply of money has grown exponentially. In fact, we've seen the greatest growth in the supply of money in history. But who benefits? Of course, those that have the power to issue money, governments and banks. They haven't had to do anything productive, they just create money. Then those companies and individuals that get this money early. They can spend it before the prices of the things they want to buy have risen to reflect the new money in circulation. In other words, they get services, products, assets cheap. But prices soon rise. So holders of assets such as shares or houses will then see gains without there necessarily being any improvements to the company or house in question. Often, this can lead to speculative bubbles. Who gets this money early? However money is created, be it through lending, fractional reserve banking, financial bailouts, or old-fashioned money printing, banks are always at or near the top of the money-issuing pyramid.
Like I said, your bankers are always at the top. The elites, the super elites are always at the top. They create these systems, these money systems, to only benefit the rich, the super rich, the elite, the super elites, right? And especially those from the Western world, right?
Next come corporations who borrow large sums.
There you go.
Those on lucrative government contracts for new ventures, particularly overseas. Banks associate companies and partners. Those that borrow early and at low rates. And the bank's senior employees. They all quickly get their share of the pie. In some cases, this will come in the form of bonuses. But what about those at the bottom of the pyramid? Those on fixed wages or incomes, those who live in remote areas, or those with savings.
The rest of us.
By the time this newly created money has filtered down to them, the prices of the things they want to buy have increased. Their savings buy them less, however, and their wages remain largely unchanged. In some cases, they have to take on debt just to be able to afford the things they were previously able to buy, which means they have to go back to the banks.
There you go.
In reality, this process of creating money only redistributes wealth from the bottom to the top of the pyramid, and thus that ever-increasing gulf between rich and poor gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
There you go. Say no more. This is how the system is set. This is how the system works. So this is why when we go back here and he says in Habakkuk 2 and 6, and he says, shall not all these take up a parable against him and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increases that which is not his? How long? How long are these bankers, these elites, these super elites, these corporations, these billionaires, these multimillionaires, how long do they think they're going to be able to get away with this rigged system that they got out there? And to him that ladders himself with thick clay. With all this debt that these countries take on, these governments take on, how long do they think that system's going to stay in place? This is why we know categorically it's going to fall apart. Once it does, they're going to have to bring in a new money system, which is going to be digital. That's going to be based on exactly what it says in Revelations 13 and 16. Exactly what it says. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in his right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. And we told you that's what the word stigma means. We showed you quite clearly. Something pricked, cut inside you. The mark, karagma. Karagma. We show you this all the time. The word mark there, karagma. Alright? Oh, sorry. Karagma.
Strong's G 5480. Charagma. Charagma.
A stamp, an imprinted mark. That's what it is. A mark stamped on the forehead and right hand. They're going to be put inside you. That's what it is. It's an imprinted mark. Somebody they're gonna, and when you go to the root meaning, a pale or a stake, a pale side. No, a pale side is a stake. When you're putting up a fence and you're putting the stakes in the ground, and then you're putting up the different parts of the fence in between the stakes. The stakes are what hold the fence together. That's what the mark is. That represents the new money system. We showed you quite clearly in Daniel's about the 10 toes representing the European Union. The European debt. We showed you quite clearly in this video here, the European debt crisis, visualized, so you can actually understand and see it, what's going on. The bankers are all doing these things for them to bring in the new system, because that's the only way they can take fully control of every single person and take control of each country's monetary system by bringing in a new money system globally, which is a new monetary system, and then the new physical policies that are tied to this new monetary system. The physical policies will determine how much tax you pay, how much wages you get, how much they take from your wages, how much you get paid hourly, how much your governments can spend, and they'll become local governments, right? How much each individual country can spend, what they can spend it on, and so they're going to control everything. Remember, the last part of the Illuminati's plan is control. They have money and they have power. What they don't have is control. And the only way they're going to get that is by collapsing the current financial monetary systems that exist in the world. The pound, the euro, and the dollar have to collapse. Have to collapse for them to bring it in. So, I just wanted to get your idea what's going on, so you get you more understanding of where these devils are. But like Job said, boy, in the fullness of their straight, boy, oh, in the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits. So when he's at the top of his pinnacle, when he thinks everything's in place where he wants, that's when it's going to collapse. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. So which means all the other nations are going to come against the ones that instigated this, America and the European Union. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. And even his own people are going to be cause uproar in their countries. But it's not going to happen until they collapse the current monetary and physical systems around the world and bring in the new world order's new monetary system, which is the RFID chip, the mark of the beast. And then they're able to take control of all the physical policies around the world. That is the last part of their plan. And when they're in the fullness of their sufficiency, he shall be in straits. He's going to be in distress. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. When he's about to fill his belly. Once these elites, these super elites, these bankers, the New World Order, the Illuminati, when they're about to fill their belly at the top, the Most High shall cast fury of his wrath upon him. and shall rain it upon him while he is eating. He shall flee from the iron weapon, which are your nuclear weapons, and the bow of steel shall strike him through. Because the countries that don't think they're getting a good part of this deal are the countries that are going to go against America and the European Union, which is NATO, which is going to be Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, all of these countries that they look on today as totalitarian governments and axis of evil. All these things are the same countries that are going to go against them. That's going to cause this uproar. And the war is going to start in the valley of Jehoshaphat, which is the valley of judgment, which is in the Middle East, where the Lord has gathered all of the armies there, like it tells you in Joel chapter 2. So, on that note, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rakah, Kodash, Tawada. Amen. Shalom, Akayam, Shalom, brothers, Shalom, sisters. Like I said, like I always say, we're that close to it because these people are going to collapse the current financial systems for them to bring in the mark of the beast, which is the RFID chip. It's as simple as that. So we're that close because they're at so much debt. The money that they're printing is not worth anything, just like we showed you. This fiat money is not worth a damn thing. We're that close. Once they've printed so much of it, they're going to have to discard it and bring in something to replace it. It's as simple as that. They've got no other choice. So now, all praises to Yahweh, Bashim, Yahushai, Bashim, Rakah, Kadash, Tawada, Amen. Shalom, brothers, shalom, sisters out there. Keep up the faith, man. Keep up the faith. Believe. Our salvation is near. Our salvation is near. Shalom.